My name is Jim Pfeiffer. I am Program Director for the No One Dies Alone program, also known as NODA. It's a program that I've been directing for 10 years for Signature, but the program was born in November of 2001, so this is a happy birthday to NODA as well. Basically what we do, our volunteers sit bedside vigil with folks who are actively dying. It's a volunteer program, it's a no-fee program, it's available to anybody. I do have four of my really great volunteers. They always seem to respond when the need is there. I'm going to ask them to share as well. There's some wonderful stories. We could probably be here all day telling stories about our experiences, but Kathy, would you like to start?
Sure. My name is Kathy Rankin, and I've been volunteering, I think, just a little over 2 years now.
Yes.
I spent 42 years working for a bank in a technical position, and as I retired, I wanted to do something that I felt was a little more meaningful and really personal with people. And I happened to pick up a newspaper article that had a picture of Jim and talked about NODA, and I felt sort of like God was tapping me on the shoulder and saying, this is something I think you could do. And I've been praying about it, so I volunteered, and Jim has been sending me out ever since. And I think one of my favorite stories is usually when we visit patients, they're not at a point where they can communicate anymore. And so, you know, they always tell you hearing and touch are the last things to go. So the two things I think I enjoy doing most with my patients is just the physical touch, if they're comfortable with it, but a hand on their shoulder, a hand on their arm, or holding their hand. And that I like to sing to them as well, so, or play really nice music. And I think one of my favorite stories, Jim, is I was sent to a vigil, and when I got there, the daughter-in-law was there, but she needed to go out and make a phone call. And I usually ask if there's any sort of faith tradition that the person has. And she said yes, he'd been at a certain church in Beaverton for a long period of time, and hadn't been able to go for 10 years, and it really had bothered him and things. And it turned out that was the church that I go to. So I was able to, when she left the room, I just took his hand and I was talking to him about the church and how it probably changed in the last 10 years, and a pastor I knew that he probably had known and really cared about. And then I was singing Amazing Grace to him. And on the very last verse, when the daughter-in-law came in and she was standing next to me and I'm sitting holding his hand, the very last line of the very last verse, a single tear came out of his eye, and he took his very last breath almost as I finished the hymn. So that just confirmed to me that they do hear us, they can feel our touch. So even though they may not outwardly be able to show us that they recognize we're there, we can tell sometimes. And sometimes you walk out of a vigil and you have no idea if you made any difference whatsoever, but then other times like that, you just really have it confirmed that what we do makes a difference.
Wow. Awesome story.
Thanks.
Well, are we going to play Can You Top This now?
Yes.
I'm Pat Locke, and I've been with NODA, Jim said, 7 years, which
Yes.
I could not believe.
You topped me.
It doesn't, yeah, right there. It doesn't seem like it. And probably because it's not an everyday thing. Maybe that's it. My kind of contributing history, if you will, is that I have my 50-some year career in nursing, and had done just practically every facet that's there. But one of the things that I did do was hospice, and one of the things that, and so when I saw the article in the paper, you got to keep doing that. It was probably within months of my moving here. I've only been here 8 years. Clipped it out, put it on the coffee table, let it sit there. I'm unpacking, I'm trying to get myself situated, trying to find out where the grocery store is, where's going to be my dentist, all that sort of thing. I got to do this, I got to do. Finally, I picked up the phone, met Jim at the Avamere in Beaverton, had a quick orientation, and because of my background, I was signed in right away. And started. And I think for me, if a family is there, I endorse everything you said and appreciate that part of it. But for me, one of the things, because of my background with hospice, as well as with case management when I was working, is the interaction with family, if there is some. And just being there. The last one that I remember was at Bethany, and the daughter was there most of the time. Her mother-in-law, it wasn't even her mother, it was her mother-in-law, she was there every time I came. And we just talked about stuff, just stuff. Her yard, how they were breaking up the house, that she was the one in charge, how the men in the family couldn't handle this, and she was supportive to all that sort of thing. And we just yacked most of the time. The last time I saw her, she gave me 2 things. She's the one that told me that her mother had an ancestry in American Indian. And I told her that I have these, what are they, dream catchers. And she said that she had, I said, bring one. So she brought one, she hung it in the window. We talked about her heritage, her mother-in-law's heritage. And then the last day, she came with a card for me with a very touching message in there, and gave me a dream catcher, which I now have on my front door. That kind of an interaction where I don't feel like I did anything at all to evoke such a message that she gave me, and this little, I treasure that. So that's only one of the things.
Yeah. You know, you folks, and we all don't really know the effect that we have on folks, on families, and the patient that we're sitting with, but we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we definitely have an effect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And sometimes we have quite an effect on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I get very emotionally involved
Yeah.
with the person we're sitting with,
Mm-hmm.
and it's difficult, but we all do it.
Mm-hmm.
Miriam.
Hi, well, I've been with the program for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
I found NODA because I took a seminar on end-of-life doulas. So NODA was mentioned there, and I decided that that's what I wanted to do. So I Googled NODA, and here comes the picture of Jim. So I read about it, and I thought, yes, this is what I want to do. So I called Jim, and I told him about my training, and he enrolled me right away. So my very special story is that Jim calls sometimes for, we sit with the nuns, and they normally don't have family with them. So I came to see this nun, and a friend of hers was sitting with her, but she said, it's okay, sit, because I'm leaving at 8, so you can stay with her. And there was a very nasty nurse that came in and decided they were going to give her a bath. And the poor nun, I mean, her eyes just opened wide and she was terrified. So I went outside with her friend and I said, don't worry, this won't happen again. I will stay with her and this won't happen. So at 10 o'clock, like 2 or 3 hours later, the nasty nurse came again and she said, well, she has a fever. We have to bring it down. I'm like, oh, why? So get up. So I did. And the nun, which at first wouldn't give me her hand, wouldn't let me go. And I said, sorry, sister, I have to go, but I promise you I'll come back and this will not happen again. So they gave her a bath, they put cold towels on her neck, and she was so terrified. So I came back in, and I sat with her and for another, I don't know how long, and a nurse came in and I said, you touch her, I kill you. And he's like, I just want to see her respiration. Said, be very quiet, do not wake her up. She's finally calm. He did, and she was sleeping, she was sound asleep, so about 2 a.m. I left. And I told Jim all this, and I said, I will be back because they will not give her more baths, and I will take care of that. So I came back the next day at night, and she was closer, if you will, and I just stayed with her, and she held my hand. She didn't push me away. She held my hand, and I felt like she was very grateful I was there. And before she took her last breath, she kind of opened her eyes and looked at me. And I was like, wow, okay, it's my gift. It's my gift to be with you, so you don't need to be grateful. It's okay, you can go now. And she left. And it was very meaningful to me and changed me.
I remember that vigil and the hours. You probably spent 16 hours with that.
Probably,
Yeah.
but it was well worth it.
Sure.
Because she needed an advocate
Yeah.
with her. So.
And that's what these folks do, is they advocate for the patient that we're sitting with.
So often, it has to do with pain control.
Mm-hmm.
And as my background, I came up in the day when, we can't give them too much, they're going to get addicted. And it angers me that there are still some people with that mindset, and that we have to, look at her, she's, or him. You can tell when somebody's not comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And what, are they going to get addicted? Come on, give me a break.
That's right.
Makes me crazy.
Yeah.
The med aides at some facilities know me by name, by first name. When they see me coming, they're like, I'll be right there. You better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Barb, I know you don't like to talk, but Barb, God bless her, she edits our newsletter, and she does an unbelievable job, and she's been awesome. And she doesn't like to talk, but fire away, dear.
Hi, I'm Barbara Auburn. I discovered NODA in 2008, and I used to do graphic art for a long, long time, graphic design. That's my background. I was thinking of a vigil that I did for an older gentleman. It was one of my very first ones, and I actually have regrets about it to this day. Surprisingly, I have others that have happier endings, but this one stuck with me. It was at the Pearl, and there's an older gentleman who was in the Marine or something. He was a long time, and he was alone at the time. And I came in to sit by him, and his son showed up, and his son started talking, and he just kept talking and talking, and I was sitting with the father, and I was holding his hand, and his breathing was changing, and the son kept talking, and I wish now, in regret, that I had taken the son and talked to him and asked him to be quiet. I said, do you want to sit by your father? And he said, no. He stood there, he got on his cell phone, he was talking. And I was too new at this, I didn't know exactly what was happening. And the father's breathing was changing. And then a friend came in for the son, and they were standing behind me and talking loudly, talking, and the whole time the father was actually transitioning. And to this day, I wish I had taken the son's hand and just given it to his father and said, "Here, your dad's passing," and
Yeah.
he did.
Oh,
He was
wow.
right there, and he passed, and the son missed the whole thing. And to this day, I kind of wish I had done
Wow.
it differently. But
Yeah.
so that was one of my very first vigils,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
was not prepared for it. Knowing what I know now, I would have done it totally different.
Wow,
But if you hadn't been there, no one would have been holding his hand.
right.
It's a good
And
point.
that
It's true.
would have been going on in the background, and he
Yeah.
would have been literally alone.
Alone, yeah.
Well, that's a thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
All these years later, it's like now I get to see it differently. Yeah.
You were there.
We all have ones that I think we look back and go, gosh, I could have handled that a little bit differently, or,
Mhm.
but, you know, we have to look overall. And, you know, these people have lived lives, we tend to push our elderly away, especially if they're sick, because we're not comfortable as a society with dying.
Yep.
And so we kind of
Or
push these-
aging.
Or aging. And
We're all
you know,
doing
these
that.
people have raised families, most of them have lived long, full lives, so many that I've sat with have been in World War II, and you know, just the stories that they have behind them, and then they're left in these little dark rooms to
Mhm.
pass by themselves. So the fact that just we're there, we're a presence, we're giving them compassion, we're helping them to die with dignity, that just, I think, is the blessing we bring to
See,
people.
that's the mindset of our volunteers. It's amazing. We have approximately 200 volunteers, and this is their mindset. It's amazing to hear their stories, and I'm just really honored and privileged to be associated with that many people with those hearts. They're just amazing hearts. And I'm extremely thankful for that. This is just a smattering of what we do. Bottom line, no one should die alone.
Amen.
Amen. And I want to thank Sandra Clark, who started this thing. Real quickly, her story, the idea for No One Dies Alone came about in the mid-'80s. I believe it was 1986, where she came upon an elderly gentleman. It was her first patient of the evening. He reached out to her, wanted her to sit with him because he was passing, and she couldn't because she had other patients, and by the time she got back to him, he had died, but he was still reaching out. So in the next 15 years, she was able to put together this awesome program called No One Dies Alone. So I'm very thankful to Sandra. Sandra is a wonderful person. She's a great friend, awesome resource,